If you run a service or consulting business and you ever had a client go quiet for no reason, or a team member drop the ball on something you thought was obvious, or a deal that felt hot at signing and then lost momentum by week three, you're not looking at a delivery problem, you're looking at a handoff problem. And almost nobody in business world teach you about this because everyone obsessed with SOPs, project management tools and software. Those matter, but they don't fix the problem. I've spent the last few years inside consulting and service business space, running ops, building millions of dollars of systems, watching where engagement actually break. And the pattern is always the same. The work inside each role is fine, but the transition between roles and where trust leaks, it's a point when you and your teammates start sharing something with your client. And in this video, I'm going to show you the 7 handoffs that exist in almost every consulting engagement, how to spot which ones are leaking in your business right now. So, if you're a service founder or consultant doing good work but losing clients for reasons you can't quite name, this is the video you didn't know you need. Save it for later if you're busy, because the handoff I'm going to name at the end is the one that cost most founders 6 figures a year and they've never audited it. So, every consultant, every ops manager, every service business founder has the same instinct when things start breaking. They think we need better SOPs, better project management softwares, better delivery frameworks, and they are not wrong. Those things help, but they solve the wrong layer of the problem. Here is what actually happens. You build an SOP for how your strategist creates a client roadmap. Great. You build another SOP for how your delivery team executes the work. Also great. Both of those SOPs work perfectly inside their own lane. The strategist knows exactly what to do. The delivery team knows exactly what to do. And yet the client still ends up confused, frustrated, and ghosting you by week 4. Why? Because the breakdown did not happen inside either role, it happened between them. Understand this. SOPs document what happens inside a specific role. They almost never document what happens between roles, and the space between roles is where 80% of client experience actually lives. Think about it this way. Your business is not a series of tasks, it is a series of transitions. Every time a piece of work, a piece of context, a piece of ownership moves from one person to another, from one tool to another, from one phase to another, that is a transition. And if that transition is not deliberately designed, it defaults to whatever the human involved happened to remember at the time, which is almost always incomplete. The industry has spent years perfecting what happens inside each box. Nobody is perfecting what happens on the arrows between the boxes. So this is what it looks like in real life. Sales SOP exists, onboarding SOP exists, strategy SOP exists, delivery SOP exists. But what is happening between these? This is where the leaks exist. This is where the blind spots are. This is not a criticism of SOPs. SOPs are essential, but they are necessary and not sufficient. The moment you start treating your business as a chain of handoffs rather than a collection of roles, you start seeing problems you could not see before. And you start fixing things that no amount of Asana columns or Monday.com boards will ever touch. So, what a handoff actually is. Before we go any further, let us define the word precisely, because most people have never even named this thing. A project handoff is the critical transition phase where information, context, ownership, or momentum moves from one person, tool, or phase to another. Read that again. It is not just passing the baton. It is four things move at once: information, the raw facts, data, and details that the next person needs to do their job, client name, goals, budget, preferences, history, quirks, blah, blah, blah. Context, the interpretation layer that sits on top of the information, why certain decisions were made, what the client is really worried about versus what they said in the sales call. The subtext, the ownership, who is now responsible, not who should probably check in, but who literally owns the next outcome and will be held accountable if it does not happen. Momentum, the energy and the pace of the engagement. A client who has excited during the sales call should still feel that energy when onboarding begins. If there is a 2 day gap of silence between signing and kickoff, momentum has leaked. So, understand this. A handoff is not a single event, it is a transfer of 4 layers at once. If even one layer drops, the next person is working with an incomplete picture and the client feels it immediately. Here is the thing most founders miss. A handoff does not have to be a formal moment. It can be a Slack message. It can be someone's tagging a colleague in a project management tool. It can be a quick, hey, can you take this over a call? The formality does not matter. What matters is whether all 4 layers actually transferred or whether only one or two made it across the gap. In most consulting businesses, what actually transfers is information. Maybe the context gets lost, the ownership is ambiguous, and the momentum dies in the gap. These are the 4 layer, and this is what it looks like. Let's talk about the second thing, the handoff in every consulting engagement. Now that you know what a handoff is and what it contains, let us map the ones that exist in almost every consulting or service business. You might not call them by these names, you might not have been noticed some of them happening, but they are there running every single day, and at least 3 of them are leaking right now. So, what are these 7 handoffs? Handoff 1, sales to onboarding. The deal closes, the client signs, the salesperson or founder is excited, and then nothing happens for 48 hours. Or worse, the onboarding person asks the clients the same question they already answered on the sales call. The client's first post purchase experience is the feeling that the left hand does not know what the right hand is doing. This is the single highest leverage handoff in your entire business, and we will come back to why at the end. Leak signal, didn't I already tell your colleague this? Handoff 2, onboarding to kickoff. The client completes your intake form, fills out the questionnaire, maybe does a welcome call, then there is a gap before the actual kickoff. During the gap, the client is sitting there wondering what happens next. There is no update, no timeline, no sense that the machine is moving. They are in limbo, and limbo breeds doubt. What is the leak signal here? So, when do we actually start? Handoff 3, strategist to delivery. The strategist creates the plan, the delivery team executes the plan, but the delivery team was not in the room when the client explained the nuance of what they actually want. They get a brief, the brief has facts, the brief does not have feel, so they build something technically correct that emotionally misses, and the client cannot articulate why they are disappointed, just that it is not quite what they imagined. What is the leak signal? This is good, but it's not really what I had in mind. Handoff 4, delivery to client review. Work is completed. It gets sent to the client, but there is no framing. No, here is what you are looking at. Here is what you pay attention to. Here is how to give us useful feedback. The client opens a document or a link, does not know what they are evaluating, gives vague feedback like, I think it needs to be more punchy, and now you are in revision relay. Leak signal, can you just make it better? Handoff 5, client feedback to revision. The client gives feedback. That feedback goes into Slack thread, an email, a voice note, a comment in a Google Doc. Pieces of it gets actioned, other pieces get missed. Nobody confirmed what the final set of changes actually is. The revision comes back and the client says, I thought I mentioned, and now you have a second revision cycle that should not exist. Leak signal, I thought I mentioned this already. Handoff 6, milestone to invoice. Work hits a milestone, an invoice goes out, but the client does not feel like a milestone was hit because nobody framed the progress. They get a payment request without a progress narrative. Now the invoice feels transactional rather than earned. This is especially bad in retainer models where the client is paying monthly and wondering what exactly they paid for. Leak signal, can you remind me what this invoice covers? Handoff 7, engagement end to renewal or referral. The project wraps, maybe there is a final call, maybe there is just the last deliverable and then silence. The client had a good experience, but nobody made the next step obvious. Nobody asked, nobody designed the off ramp, so the client moves on. And 3 months later, when a friend asks, do you know a good consultant? Your name is not the first one that comes to mind because the ending had no shape. Leak signal, silence. No referral, no renewal, no reason given. 7 handoffs. This is a minimum depending on your engagement model. You might have sub handoffs within each of these, like splitting delivery across multiple team members or involving external contractor. But these 7 are universal. If you run any kind of consulting or service business, all 7 of these are happening every engagement right now. So, how do you test it? How to know if a handoff is broken? You do not need an audit framework or a consulting diagnostic to know if your handoffs are broken. There is one question that tells you everything. If the next person in the chain asks a question that the previous person should have already answered, you do not have a skill problem. This is a handoff problem. This is the test. This is the entire test. Every time someone in your business says, wait, what's the context here? Or who's owning this? Or what did the client say they wanted? After a transition has already happened, this is a leaked handoff. And here is why this matters so much. When a handoff leaks, the cost is never just the wasted time or re-asking. The cost is 3 things stacked on top of each other. Time cost, the obvious one. Re-asking, re-explaining, redoing, usually 30 minutes to 2 hours per lead, multiplied across every engagement every week. Second, trust cost. Every time the client has to re explain something, their confidence in your operations drop. They start thinking, if they can't keep track of what I told them, can they really deliver the complex work I'm paying for? One leaked handoff is forgiven, 2 is concerning, 3, and they are looking at alternatives. Momentum cost. A leaked handoff creates a pause. A pause creates doubt. Doubt slows decisions. Slower decisions extend timeline. Extended timeline increase the chance of cancellation. It is a compounding chain and it starts with a single leak. Imagine you hire a builder to renovate your kitchen. The sales guy was great, understood exactly what you wanted. Then the project starts and the site format shows up and says, so what kind of kitchen are you thinking? You feel your stomach drop, not because the foreman is incompetent. He might be brilliant, but because the transition between the person who sold you and the person who built for you just broke. And now you are doing the selling again, except you already paid. That feeling, that is what your clients experience when your handoffs leak. So what you can do next week? For the next 5 days, keep a tally every time someone on your team, including you, asks a question that someone else should have already answered during a transition. Write it down, who asked what and who should have passed it on. And at the end of the week, count them. Most founders are shocked to find 15 to 30 leaked handoffs per week in a business with just 3 to 5 team members. 4. Why handoffs own the client experience? Here is the part most people resist because it goes against everything the industry teaches. Clients do not remember the quality of your delivery, they remember the quality of the transitions around it. Think about that for a second. You can build the best strategy deck in your industry, perfectly researched, beautifully designed, actionable down to the last slide, and the client will still churn if the 4 days between delivering the deck and following up felt like silence. Because what the client experienced was not, wow, what a great strategy. What the client experienced was, I received something, I had questions, nobody reached out, and by the time they did, I had already started wondering if this was a mistake. What consultants optimize? What consultants actually remember? What consultants optimize is the strategy, the design, the audit, the campaign, the report, hours and hours perfecting the thing inside the role. They think if the work is good enough, the client will stay. Result, great work wrapped in a mediocre experience. What clients actually remember, the feeling. Was I kept in the loop? Did I feel like someone was thinking about me between milestones? Did the handoff from sales to delivery feel smooth, or did I have to re explain everything? The result? Average work wrapped in a premium experience often wins. This is not about lowering your standards on delivery. Delivery still matters, but delivery is table stakes. The thing that separates the consultants who get referrals from the ones who just get thanks that was great is the experience layer. And the experience layer is owned entirely by handoffs. Your strategy deck is the food, your handoffs are the service. And in every restaurant on the planet, service determines whether people come back, not the food. The food just has to be above a certain threshold. Once it's above that line, service takes over as the deciding factor. Your handoffs are your client's emotional experience of working with you. Fix the handoffs and the client's perception of your entire business shifts, even if the underlying deliverables do not change at all. The meeting trap. Why adding more sync times makes it work. This is where most founders go wrong once they realize handoffs are the problem. The instinct is always the same. We just need more check ins. Let's add a weekly sync. Let's do a 15-minute handoff call between the strategist and the delivery team every time a project moves phases. And on the surface, that sounds reasonable. More communication should equal better handoffs, right? Wrong. More meetings create four new problems. Calendar bloat. Every new sync is 15 to 30-minute times the number of people times the frequency. In a 5-person team doing 10 client engagement, a quick weekly sync per client is a 50 meetings a week. Your team starts spending more time talking about the work than doing the work. Second problem, the recall. Meetings are spoken words evaporate. The strategist explains the nuance of what the client wants. The delivery person nods, takes no notes, and 3 days later remembers 40% of what was said. You have replaced a broken handoff with a slightly less broken handoff. Third problem, dependency creation. Sync meetings create a dependency on availability. If the meeting does not happen, the handoff does not happen. If someone is sick or leave or just in a different time zone, the entire chain stalls. Your business cannot scale if every transition requires two people to be in the same room at the same time. False confidence. The meeting happens, everyone leaves like the handoff was done, but nothing was written down. Nothing can be referenced later. If a question comes up 2 weeks later about what was agreed, there is no artifact, just conflicting memories. So, if the meetings are not the answer, what is? The answer is asynchronous handoff artifacts. A written or loom based handover document that travels with the work, not a meeting, not a Slack message that disappears into the scroll, not a Slack message that disappears into the scroll, a persistent, referenceable, transferable artifact that carries all four layers of the handoff: information, context, ownership, momentum, without requiring anyone to be in the same room. This is what it looks like in short. What is the fix? The six field handoff artifact. Here is where the handoff framework gets concrete. A good handoff artifact contains exactly 6 fields, not 12, not 26. You can build this in a Notion template, a Google Doc, a Slack canvas, or even a structured voice note on Loom. The format does not matter, the 6 fields matter. First, context carried forward. What happened before this moment that the next person needs to know, not just facts but interpretation. The client signed a 3-month retainer is information. The client signed a 3-month retainer but expressed hesitation about the timeline and may need early reassurance is context carried forward. Decision made. What has already been decided and by whom? This prevents the next person from reopening settled question, which is one of the fastest way to annoy a client. We agreed on a content first approach. The client chose this over paid ads after we walked through the pros and cons on the sales call. Open questions. What has not been decided yet? What the next person needs to resolve. This is the most commonly missing field. Without it, the next person either assumes everything is settled and get it wrong or re-ask everything and waste time. Fourth, next owner. Who specifically is responsible for the next action? Not the delivery team, not someone should, a name, one person. If there is no single name, the handoff has already leaked before it began. Deadline. By when does the next action need to happen? Not soon or this week, a date and ideally a time. Deadline creates momentum. Without them, handoffs sit in the limbo and the client feels the gap. Expected output. What should exist after the next step is complete? A first draft of the content calendar or a kickoff email sent to the client with the project timeline attached. This is what the next owner is aiming at. Without it, they deliver something, but it might not be the right something. You can take a screenshot. This is what it looks like. Here is a worked example. Let us say the sales call just closed and you need to hand off to onboarding. Context. Sarah, founder of a 12-person HR consultancy, came from a LinkedIn post about AI automation, has been doing everything manually for 4 years, expressed frustration specifically about proposal creation taking too long and client reporting being inconsistent. She's analytical, asks detailed questions, and prefers written communication over calls. Decision made, 3 month engagement, content system built first, then automation layer. She chose this over the full suite because she wants to see the results before committing further. Budget is confirmed, payment schedule is 50% upfront, 50% at the 6 week mark. Open question. She mentioned wanting her team trained on the system, but we did not discuss format, live training versus recorded. Also unclear whether she wants us in her existing Notion workspace or building a new one. Next owner, Jamie, onboarding lead. Deadline, welcome email sent by end of the day, Thursday. Kickoff call scheduled within 5 business days of signing. Expected output, client receives welcome email with project timeline, kickoff call agenda, and intake questionnaire link. Jamie confirms receipt and books the kickoff call. That took 3 minutes to write, and it just saved Jamie 30 minutes of guessing, saved Sarah from having to re explain herself, and preserved every ounce of momentum from the sales conversation. What you need to do this week: build your first handoff artifact template today. Open whatever tool your team uses: Notion, Google Docs, Slack, Airtable. Create a template with those 6 fields. Name it handoff artifact from to person. Then use it on your very next client transition. Just one. See what happens. The 6 figure handoff, sales to onboarding. Of the 7 handoffs, one of them matters more than all the other combined, and it is the one that most founders get completely wrong. Sales to onboarding. Here is why. The sales to onboarding handoff sets the emotional tone for the entire engagement. If the client's first experience of you as operator, not as a salesperson, during the sales process, you were on your best behavior, responsive, attentive, sharp. The client felt important, and then they signed, and then suddenly the experience shifted. Maybe it shifted subtly, the day of silence, an onboarding email that felt templated and generic, a kickoff call where the new person clearly had not read the sales note. Maybe it shifted dramatically. A week before everyone reached out, questions that had already been answered, a feeling that the energy had dropped overnight. Either way, the client noticed, and in that moment, a belief formed, a belief that says the sales experience was the premium version. This is the real version. Once that belief sets in, everything downstream is tainted. The strategy deck is viewed with suspicion, the delivery timeline is questioned, feedback becomes more critical, and when renewal time comes, the client remembers the drop, even if the actual work was excellent. Fixing the sales to onboarding handoff moves client NPS. This is a new term for many people. NPS means Net Promoter Score. I will explain what is it. So, fixing the sales to onboarding handoff moves client NPS more than fixing any single delivery output in your entire business. And it is not even close. Client NPS, which is Net Promoter Score, is a customer satisfaction metric that measures client loyalty and the likelihood of them recommending your business. It is calculated from a single question on a 0 to 10 scale, and the clients are categorized into 3 groups: detractors 0 to 6, passives 7 to 8, promoters 9 to 10. Most consultants try to improve their NPS by improving their deliverables, better strategy, better design, better reports, and those things help, but they operate on the 7 to 8 level. Moving a passive to promoter, the thing that moves a detractor to a passive or a passive straight to promoter, is the experience layer. And the single biggest lever on the experience layer is the transition from I just bought to I'm being taken care of. That is the sales to onboarding handoff. If you do nothing else after watching this video, fix that one, build the artifact, make sure the onboarding person has the full context before they ever speak to the client, make sure the client receives communication within hours of signing, not days, make sure the energy does not drop. That one handoff fixed properly is worth 6 figures a year in retained revenue for most consulting business doing 500,000 or above. Because every client who would have churned at month 3 due to a slow start now stays to month 6. Every client who would have given you a 6 now would have given you a 7 now gives you a 9 and refers to friends. There's a quote I like to say all the time to my marketing team and even to some of my clients. People will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. The reframe. Your business is a chain of handoffs. Let us pull it all together. Every service business and consulting operation looks like a series of tasks. You build the strategy, you deliver the work, you send the report, you invoice the client, task, task, task. But it is not a series of tasks, it is a series of handoffs. And the quality of the chain is determined by the weakest transition, not the strongest task. Stop worrying about your delivery, audit your transitions, fix the handoffs, and the tasks mostly fix themselves. Here is why the tasks fix themselves when the handoffs are clean. When the next person in the chain receives full context, clear decisions, identified open questions, named ownership, a real deadline, and a defined outcome, they are set up to do their best work. They are not guessing, they are not re-asking, they are not building something in a fog. They know exactly what they are aiming at, why it matters, and when it is due. Bad delivery is almost never a skill problem. It is almost always a context problem. And context is transferred or lost at the handoff. So what does the reframe looks like? Old view is focused on tasks, great task, leak transition, client churns, you do not know why. New view is instead of task, you focus on handoffs, clean transition, tasks get the context they need, client stays, client refers, revenue compounds. What is the action item for you? Map all 7 handoffs for your business this week. Take 30 minutes, draw the full chain from sales to renewal for your most common engagement type. Label each handoff. Ask yourself, do we have an artifact for this transition or is it happening in someone's head? Every handoff that is happening in someone's head is a leak waiting to happen. Start with the sales to onboarding handoff and build the 6 field artifact for it first. So that is the handoff problem. The thing that has been costing you clients, costing you referrals, costing you revenue, and you could not see it because the entire industry told you to focus on SOPs and delivery frameworks. Those matter, but they are the boxes. Your business breaks on the arrows. If you are running a consulting business or service business and you want us to map your entire handoff chain, build the artifact, and show you exactly where your clients are experiencing trust leak, book a call, link is in the description. That is it. Fix the handoffs, the rest follows.